Thank you. Please have a short break before we go to Q&A. And Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for all of the brothers and sisters who are on the platform and enjoying these beautiful verses and their explanation. Thank you for being here. Ji. As there is no hand up on the screen yet, I thought, Ijazbhai, if we could briefly explain for everyone's benefit, in the simplest form, description of a self. Because as we speak to other people, it is so vital that we point out that, you know, apart from your body, we have a self in that, in around us. If you could brief, this is for my own benefit, a brief explanation of what is a self or not.
Well, thank you very much. There are, as we have gone through it previously as well, it's good to remind, because human beings have two parts of existence, or two parts of our existence. Our physical body, of course, everyone knows about it. And everyone knows that what are the needs of our physical body. And we also know that physical body is controlled by, or is regulated by physical laws. For example, if I put my finger in fire, I will burn my finger. If I take too much water, then it will harm me. And we have to have balance in our diet, in our environment, everything we do in life. But these are, if we think that the life will end with death, and that is the general impression in the world, and that is how most of the human beings live their life in the world, they think that life will end with physical death. Once the brain is dead, they are dead. But Quran points our attention to another aspect of us, and it says that there is also your psyche, your I, your self within you, your sense of being. And that sense of being, that I, has made, if that makes a decision that the life will end with death, then essentially you are a physical being. You are not taking care of yourself, your psyche, where you are making those decisions. And what Quran says is that that psyche has its own existence. It's an entity within you. It may not be visible to you, but you, the way you are acting, the way you are thinking and making decisions and making choices in life, that one is pointing to this fact that you have a self within you. You have a sense of being with you, which is defined by your I inverted commas. That is me. I am. That is why, for example, that French guy, I think he said it, that I think, therefore I am. And this is something to which the Quran, and Quran calls it nafs. Quran keeps drawing our attention to it. And it says that while there are laws governing your physical body, your material side, there are also laws which are concerning with the self. And those are the permanent values which are given in the Quran. Because without those permanent values, you will be living your life within the relative values, which are very much related to the physical existence of yours. You will be all the time pursuing the material goods all the time. And I'll give you an example. For example, how I get food is of no consequence as far as my body is concerned. Whether I steal it, through deceitful means I get it, or by killing somebody I get it, or I get it by legitimate means, that is through my own hard work. It will still give benefit to my body. But if I tell a lie to get it, then myself is impacted. And if that telling lie is not cognizable or is not what you call by the human law, then I will get away with it. And that is what is, for example, happening in the world, that people are usurping, you are invading other countries to take away their means of sustenance and think this is legitimate because they have power. And that means they don't have that self to which the Quran is drawing our attention. And this is the problem human beings face in their world, that if they do not hold their self, because accountability only comes when I recognize that I have a self. If I don't recognize that I have a self, I'm accountable, then because I can hide my intention, and if the system permits me to do wrong, then there is no power which can stop me from doing wrong, because that becomes legitimate, that becomes legal, inverted commas. Whereas Quran says it's not the case. Since you have a self, and that self is accountable because of the permanent values which exist. So that means permanent values exist, whether we like them or don't like them. So when we operate in the world, function in the world as if permanent values do not exist, then that means we think that the life will end with death. And Quran says life cannot end with death, because life is not meant to end. Life is a continuous stream at a self level. It's simply because it's a divine energy, and divine energy cannot disappear. Even in physical word, they say that energy is indestructible. It just changes form, but energy remains there in one form or another. And self means that whatever I do, that has an impact on myself. And obviously, if I do not recognize that I have a self, then whatever I do, how will I recognize that it is impacting myself? You get my point? So accountability is a fact of life which is put forward by the Quran, but it cannot be recognized without the lens of the Quran. And that is the point. And for that, Quran says you have to question. The questions for guidance should arise within you willingly. You say that, for example, what is going on in this world as of today, wars and conflicts are everywhere, and a lot of human beings are upset by what is going on in Palestine, for example. But if we really look at the history of mankind, this is not something which is happening first time. This happened in for example, through carpet bombing in Vietnam. It happened in North Korea. It happened in the Second World War. It happened in First World War. It happened previously as well. And it happened even within the so-called Muslim regimes as well, and empires as well. Why did it happen? Because when they do not follow the divine values, permanent values willingly, then human beings resort to these kind of things, because human beings think that the life will end with death. This is the way we behave. And Quran is the way to overcome those proclivities, those inclinations, those tendencies within us, so that we do not resort to injustice, because we recognize our inner self. And when we recognize our inner self, that it will affect my character, my behavior, my conduct. And if I do not do this, then I should get used to living among conflicts and wars. So Quran is essentially giving us that option, that through your own inner change, you can bring a change in the outer world. And for that, it gives us this recipe of the Quran, 114 chapters, to go through them, understand them, relate these to the world in which you are living, and then coming together. And one of the signs, Iftikhar Bhai, of coming together, as I said, is when we have Iman. That Iman, if that has not created that change within us, which seeks out mu'mineen like them for the system of Deen, that means that Iman is contaminated, that Iman is mushrik. And I'm saying this to all of our brothers and sisters over here, that keep this in mind. You don't have to disclose it to others, because a lot of people read the Quran, they even read Allama Pervez's books, but they do not find enough change within themselves which attracts them to doing this, by to try to come to become a companion of those who are on this path. For example, within me, I want to be part of all of you. I want to be with you. I want others to join in as well. And that is our effort. Each one of us is making an effort, and I make effort all the time, continuously. But they don't want, because they haven't overcome those proclivities, those tendencies within them, which are creating differences within their own self. Remember, this is the verse within that Jews were creating differences within them, and as a result, they resorted to this ill discipline of breaking the limits. And this is what is happening in today's world as well in Israel. They are not living a peaceful life. They are living a life which is continuously under fear. They should look at it that why do people in the world despise them? Because they are human beings like any one of us. And if people despise them, they do not like them, it is because of their behavior, character, and conduct. And that behavior and conduct is the manifestation of their inner self. And that is how we should view it. So that takes away that false hope that somehow world will change because people are supplicating at some, or we keep waiting that somehow law of requital will get hold of them automatically, or their errors will reach that stage where they will get self-destroyed. That is not what the Quran is telling us. Quran is telling us that whatever path other human beings are following, let them follow that. What you do is you follow this path which I have prescribed for you, because this is how you will become eligible for my help. That is Allah's help. So that is how we should view it. And that is our effort. That is my effort. When I put these slides together, I always look into it that what is in it for each one of us who are on this platform.
Yeah.
You get my point. So I hope that point because otherwise this is just an academic exercise that we go through these slides, we go through these points like a parrot, and that is the end of it. No, if that is how we feel, then that means something is lacking within each one of us where we have to make an effort to understand it. Because then we have to go out and live our life at this stage, individual basis. We cannot be physically together yet. And that is important, that we have to convince ourselves, keep motivating ourselves, keep reminding ourselves that the path I am following is the legitimate, is the right path, is Sirat al-Mustaqim, which the Quran has put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi, for a wonderful explanation. Ji Manzoor Bhai, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum to all.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sir. You got a nice,
thank you very much, Dr. Sir.
Nice
it was
shirt.
Great, really.
Nice shirt.
Yeah, so since nobody had raised the hand, I thought I will raise it.
Oh, no, that
and say thanks. So it's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Now, here we are talking about the salient features of the character of, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, where you have put one of the slides about the salient features, I was looking at it. So it seems to me it is telling us that how Nabi Ibrahim was a man who liked to ask questions and to find the truth. He utilized his intellect and power of logic to sift between things, seeing the pathetic situation of his people under the yoke of Asnam, Ilah, or Tamasil, which I understand are the corrupt leaders. We haven't touched the scene. What traditionally we know that people are talking about a temple where there were idols. He went there, he broke them, and so on and so forth, which actually within the slide I was looking at it, it doesn't come like that. It comes actually a fight between the corrupt leaders, which are given as Tamasil and Asnam there, and with the truth. Although he tried his best, but he initially talked to his father, then talked to his Qawm as well. Some of them listened to him, but finally there were people who did not listen to him and they went back to their overlords. So what I'm trying to ask, that we have not touched his character, actually what are we supposed to follow the Millat Ibrahim? I mean, doing good things is great, but is it not actually the scene of that fight or that discussion which they had? That's why one of the verses came there about how do you talk to people about the wahi or about the message of God. So we did not touch that part. That's what I just wanted to know. Is there something to touch on that scene? What happened between him and his people and his father as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Saab. That's a very good query and a question as well. I did look at it, and I did not want to go in that direction. The reason was, firstly, that this will come up in its own, what do you call, in its own turn as and when we deal with that verse. And the second was that his reaction at that time and what what the Quran has displayed is a very powerful reaction of him, where he really took them on at a very strong, through his strong reaction to idolatry in that society, if we take it literally. And if we take it metaphorically, even then it means that he reacted very strongly to those. And there is also a dialogue with the ruler of that time, Namrud, I think that is the name given to him. And he also was very strong against his father. And hopefully at some point we will look into it in more detail. Because when I was putting these slides together, in fact, I took out another slide as well. I thought that over here, we remain confined to what is stated here. But I agree that because once Quran says he was an Ummah in himself, it sums up his complete personality. And then Quran says that he is a leader for you, he's an imam for you. And as a human being, he went to the highest, should I say, pinnacle of humanity, just like Rasulullah. And it doesn't mean that we are comparing the messengers among themselves. All those messengers were very eminent and had very lofty personalities. There is no doubt in that. But Quran has, as an example, given us those aspects with which I think Arabs at that time were familiar. And without differentiating between them, the issue for each one of us, at least that is the way I look at it, is that if similar situation arises, we should have enough courage of our conviction through the Quran to stand up to these wrongs which are being done. For example, nowadays, idolatry in that sense is limited to few religions. Mostly people are staying away from that. And the new idolatry is, of course, all these entertainment and celebrity culture, and of course media and political parties. In fact, political parties are a big idol in the political world which people follow. And I've seen it that even those who have come to through Islam, some of them are very much committed to the political idolatry. So that is my impression. Oh, I don't know if it satisfies you.
No, thank you very much. Yes, that's true. Because otherwise, if we think about just idols, then, I mean, idols are not the enemies. It is the corrupt mind which is the enemy. Because just having an idol will not cause any problems to anybody. And also, breaking the idols, that means we have to follow his path. We cannot do that.
No.
When we are told that we have to respect the other faiths as well. But yes, you're right. Thank you very much.
I know, I agree with you. That's a very good point. My mind didn't go in that direction. And you remember, Quran has said that do not curse and condemn their idols. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. No, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manzoor Bhai. Ji Amjad Bhai, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you, Amjad?
As well as one can be.
No, you should be better now because we have gone through this presentation.
Oh, no. This is, presentations are always open your eyes and,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. The presentation is something that's, is helpful and always, bring new knowledge. I think I was just going to agree with Dr. Manzoor on this point. Maybe this is the more we understand the Quran, the more we will understand its meaning, as time goes by. Because there are people now, when I'm looking at some other interpretation, and I get the feeling, and again, this is my understanding, I could be wrong, so not blaming on anybody, is whenever Prophet came, they came to fight against the wrong system. So it's not, if you look at religious people, they're, locked in their own cells. It's not they can harm anybody. If the system is wrong, that can have a big impact on individual's life. So whether that's, Hazrat Ibrahim al-Islam, whether that's Hazrat Noah al-Islam, Prophet, including Hazrat Lut al-Islam, again, my understanding is the system they were fighting. And this is what our fight is to fight the system and replace it with the system that we are being told in the Quran, which is a system that gives justice. Now, within that system, we're going to have all kind of religious practice. You know what I mean? This is why Allah Ta'ala said, respect them. I mean, if this is what they want to follow, that's fine. But the core thing that we need to aim is the system. It's that system that, if the system is right, that will help mankind, to develop, maybe even to learn, and maybe even to come out of their religious practice. So it's just a statement. If you got anything that you want to add on this, this is my understanding. I think the main thing is a system. If you look at the Quran, it's a system. If you look at Hazrat Ibrahim al-Islam, he's that's how I understand. Is a full system. So the message is to get that system placed so man can live, happy. Resources can be distributed equally. There's respect. And within that system we're going to have all kind of, individual, there's going to be all kind of, religious practice, which is going to be there. And I think Quran recognize that. But as, a moment, our focus is the system. And it's just a statement I want to make. If you have anything to add.
Yes, no, thank you very much. That is the correct way of looking at it. That the system, we should not become a victim of the system. If I am a victim of the system and I don't challenge the system, and to challenge that, Quran says, make a start somewhere. And making a start somewhere is that those who are already working, go and join them. And to check using the Quranic criteria if their path is right, and then guide them in case their path is wrong. And that means I ought to have a very high discernment level of my own psyche, and which means that I should be all the time aware of what is in the Quran. And wherever we feel that are not comfortable, we should be frank enough to point it out. For example, I've given this presentation over here. All of us over here on this platform should look at it critically. And I'm very pleased that we all are very, very conscious of it, that nothing against the Quran, overall context, overall perspective of the Quran, nothing is said over here. And if we see people who are interpreting these verses, and I come across that, people send me some individual comments of some people that what do you think in the light of what Allama Pervez has said? And all of these people who comment on that and go in the different directions, they are the ones who haven't understood the system of Deen. And if we do not understand the system of Deen, then we can give whatever meanings we like to any verse of the Quran. It is our choice. It makes no difference to Allah or to the man-made system or the plight of human beings. I'll give you a very simple example. What is happening in Palestine, of course, it is horrible. But this is nothing different from what happened in Vietnam, for example. They're same human beings. They were not following of the Quran. What happened in Second World War, First World War, Napoleonic Wars, or we can go back into the history, what happens during Romans' time. And what is happening right in front of our eyes, for example, Yemen, Ukraine, Iraq, Syria, and Kashmir, all of these are happening, and Quran has pointed to that, and the sole reason for that is because there is no system of Deen anywhere. So if I shed tears on these this tyranny and cruelties in the world, then I should also look at the plight of human beings and see why are they in this mess in the first place. And that is where then my responsibility comes in, that what have I done for this? And the Quran says that you come to the Quran and get onto this path and all of you come together on this path, Asimu bihablillahi jamiyya, unite your heart, and then see how things pan out, how things develop. And if without doing those responsibilities which are on me, and I keep crying day and night, knowing that this is because of not following Allah's path, that there is all these conflicts exist in the world, then Quran calls us mushrik. Quran calls us kafir. And for kafirin, if we look at the Quran, throughout it says they will live a life of hell over here. And hell does not mean physical work. Even if we have all the amenities and conveniences of this life, what are we going to do with all the huzn and fear of death and accountability and uncertainty of life within our psyche? So we are essentially living in a world today where most people do not even recognize the existence of self within them, and that includes all the religious. And all these people I've seen, let me be very crude also and forthright, that all these people who start giving their own meanings by picking up one word here and there, they do not have that self which we call the Quranic self. And I don't tell them, because there is no point in telling them. I can only point their attention to that you have to look at it in the context of the Quran, because these are distractions which these people are following, because they are not seeking guidance from Allah, and they do not see yatim, miskeen, and misery in the world. And that is the problem these people face. But we should not condemn them. It is their path, their choice. The accountability is for each one of us, individually as well as collectively. It becomes collectively because now we have formed a platform and we are together, we are discussing it. But still the individual responsibility stays there. That is why Quran says that Ibraheem was an Ummah in himself. And that is the message we should take with us from this presentation of today. Thank you. I hope that makes sense.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad Bhai.
So Abe wants to.
Ji Suhaib, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Dr. Manzoor and Amjad Bhai for their input. Actually, one of the questions I had asked was actually answered in your conversation, so thank you for that. The question that I wanted to ask, Jazanko, was the idea of sustenance given it should be given to everyone through this system that we understand of Quran. Yet those that are in power, like let's just take the example of Palestine-Israel conflict, those that are in power are taking this this sustenance from others. Now those others who have had this sustenance taken away from them, how do they continue having this iman and having this faith to carry on? And my question here then is, because we understand it from a Quranic perspective, how do we almost, we can't even fathom what they're going through, those in Palestine right now, but those in Vietnam that at the time, they're all going to go through this, and that's what we've understood, and that's what we have hope, and that's why we believe that. And yet I can't see how they will come to the Quran the way it should come to them, with so much devastation that they see around them. How do they possibly get to that level of iman and understanding if there is no sustenance in their life?
Yes, I agree with you that we see, when we look at what is going on in the world, and of course Quran invites us to look at examples around us, and we have to somehow come to terms with the Quranic interpretations of our world. And the issues which we are finding today, their roots are going back hundreds of years. These problems haven't suddenly come in front of us. Just like a seed, it takes time to grow. So whatever criminality we are watching in today's world, this criminality, its origins are many, many hundred years ago. And if we look at those hundreds of years of history, let's say 400 years, 300 years, And look at the Ottoman Empire, which was very strong, and a lot of these Muslim countries, even there was a Mughal rule in India. What did they do? Did they follow the Quran? No. What were they doing? They were just ordinary materialistic kind of governments and rulers who are more interested in their own conveniences and their own luxuries and their own allurements. And they never looked at the Quran. They all had Quran. Whole of Middle East and India and Far East and the Central Asia, they all had the Quran and they still have the Quran. Do they bother to go through it? No. Why not? Because they are not looking for guidance. So all of them, it is a very hard thing to say, but it is a fact. They all live life as if it will end with death. And the Quran says those who are blind in this world will be raised up blind in the hereafter. Why Quran calls them blind? Because they failed to use their intellect for the purpose for which they were given this intellect. And we have seen it that the intellect which was given to us before coming to the Quran, that intellect was exactly the same as all of these guys have. And the intellect now, which has transformed into a Quranic intellect, we can see those things which we couldn't see previously. And in today's one verse, did you see Quran has said not to have huzn on these people when they become destroyed? So what is happening in today's world is that the people are becoming destroyed because of their own deeds or the deeds of their forefathers, because they failed to look into the law of requital and law of respite and what the Quran was telling them. And it is not that they were blind, it is their hearts which are blind.
No, Uncle, I understand that, but what about those that are being oppressed? So what about the
They will be oppressed. They will keep being oppressed. And what is the lesson for us, you and me, is to keep pursuing this path. Remember, the Quran says sabr. Sabr means steadfast after understanding that why we have to remain steadfast. It does not mean that what is going on in the world is we shut our eyes from that and say that it is not my problem. Not at all. What it is saying is that you and me and all of us over here have to come to terms with the causes and reasons for what is going on in the world, and where Allah can help us, that is His law can help us to come together, unite our hearts, and then see what changes will come at some subsequent time. So we are going through a very, very initial nascent stages of our path on this. Otherwise, we cannot do anything. What you and me can do is that we leave this path and then go and join up those who are protesting day and night, and nothing will come out of it. Nothing will come out of it. Mark my words, these problems will keep spreading. These wars, we didn't know these wars. You remember when you were not born, I was there when in 60s, and we used to hear on radio and read in the newspaper that there was carpet bombing done in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos, and people's lives were being destroyed. And at that time, Russia, no doubt Soviet Union, was still a superpower, and they didn't do anything. China was next door, they didn't do anything. Why didn't they do it? Because every country is nationalistic and they only think about their own interests. And those who are powerful, then they exploit others. And at that time, fear of communism and socialism was the one that was on the basis of which then Western nations, which are capitalists, they try to neutralize them. And that was the cause of war in Korea as well. These things are going to continue. And of course, at that time, there was no social media. Very few people knew about it. Then the war in Iraq came along. And of course, in between, many other wars came along. Pakistan also fought a couple of wars with India. Why did they fight? I was there. 1965-71 wars, both were avoidable. This Ayub Khan was more or less in continuous contact with Allama Pervez. Why didn't he listen to Pervez, who was talking to him about the Quran? Because they deep down hate the Quran. They don't want to put their own desires and wishes under the domain of the Quran, under the orbit of the Quran. Because deep down, they don't like Allah. Let me put it very frankly. They hate Allah. They don't like him. They like that God which is concocted by their own desires. If you look at they all have their own God, and that is a contaminated concept of.
Yeah, but the idea of Iblis itself, the word itself, from what I understand, just means hopeless.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Hopeless from
yeah.
the blessings and bounties of Allah, hopeless and from the bounties of the Quran,
Yes, okay, yeah, absolutely fine. So
in despair.
with that statement, then those that are suffering or those that are not able to get the sustenance that they need, they are not hopeless in the sense that they don't believe in Allah's bounty, Allah's greatness, and His help. What they are, it's really hard because you might see some videos, you might see some literature, you might see some articles, and there is no Allah in their eyes, from my understanding. For them, it's just
Allah of the Quran, the concept of Allah of the Quran.
okay. So there is no Allah in
they do say inshallah, mashallah, alhamdulillah, all these terms they use.
No,
Even Western word. I remember when I used to sneeze in my office in Dundee, there was another guy who used to say, "God bless you, Ijaz."
No, that's fine. That's not. But what I'm saying is, it's difficult to see from their perspective how they will ever come to this understanding unless we, as bring this system to everyone. But then that might not even happen in our lifetime. So it's just
why
it's
just let me intercept here for the benefit of everyone, including myself. Why do you think it will not help within your lifetime?
I think that on this trajectory, I'm not saying it won't help me in my lifetime, in kind of my domain and my influence, and inshallah, it will make a difference. But what I'm thinking about right now is, right, you've got, because you see so much literature right now and articles written right now on this conflict, and no one is talking about the Quran. Everyone is talking about so many other things except the Quran. So it's not in their mind. It's not in their mind. The only thing that I see the Palestinian people that are suffering at the moment, the only thing that gets them going is this conviction that they have, this iman that they have in their own understanding of Islam, keeps them going and keeps them sane, almost keeps them from not breaking down completely. But then some of them are breaking down completely.
But
yeah, it's difficult
let me ask you a question.
sometimes, you know.
Let me ask you a question in a very informal way. How their suffering is different from those who suffered in Iraq, who suffered in Syria, who suffered in Libya, and still
No, they're not. It's the same.
and
Absolutely same.
in Africa where there is no war, but they are. I'll give you an example.
The
Harun,
exact same.
Harun is here. I don't know if you know. He's not here. He went to Tanzania, I think, Farah. And he was quoting to me one example that 3 children came to him, very thin, very slim, very skeleton virtually. And they came to him and said, "Could you give us some money so that we can buy some food? We are very hungry." And he gave them money, and they immediately ran and went to the nearest burger shop and bought some burgers and ate right in front of them. And that was one meal. What about their second meal the next day? And he saw in A&E, he worked over there, and he saw no medicine for people who were coming over there and were bleeding to death. And it is happening as we speak. It is happening as we speak. And it is happening in whole of Africa. It is happening in even in Pakistan, in slums. Go to villages, go to slums, and you will see that how much misery over there. And all of these things can be sorted out. And see, when the system of Deen will come, it does not mean that this system will be only for Mu'mineen. There will be people who will not accept the Iman of Quran. But at least they will not be treated the way people are being treated. They will be treated respectfully, dignity. They have made certain choices. Let them live their life with those choices.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
And they will be majority as well.
Yeah.
Quran all along says, "Aksarun nas la ya'lamun." Most of the human beings are not going to come to this path. The reason is that it's very difficult to bring that inner change. If I don't know, sometimes I feel helpless to explain it to others that how they have to come to terms with it. People listen to it rationally thinking. It's very easy to tell someone that, look, this is the world we have around us and this is the misery. And there is a solution over here. While you are protesting, while you are sending WhatsApp right, left, and center, that is fine. But come to this path and try to be part of this campaign, this struggle, this path of Allah, his companionship, and he is telling you that you will not be left alone. His law will definitely help you. But they just turn their faces away and go away because they are looking for some immediate benefits of life. And all of them invariably, I'm telling you, they think life will end with death. Their success is all material benefits. I'll give you another example. There is a fellow who phoned me other day from Pindi, and he's on our both groups as well. And he calls himself Qurani as well. And I told him, and he gave a lot of praise to Allama Pervez, to Tulu Islam. And towards the end, after spending about 45 minutes, I said, look, brother, I'm a very busy man, and I gave you time because I wanted to listen to your side of things. But unless you come to Tulu Islam and join us, I don't think there is anything common between you and me. And I thought he will be moved. He immediately put the phone down. So what I mean is that if we are not concerned about the system, and we day and night we are praying for Palestinians and Ukrainians and Iraqis and Syrians and Kashmiris and Africans and Vietnamese and everyone, what is the point of that praying knowingly as a moment that Allah will not accept our prayer? We all know all our prayers, the prayers of kuffar, Quran says, are totally waste of time. So these are the kind of questions all of us in our own time must come to terms with. There is no point in glossing over it and say, oh no, inshallah, mashallah, alhamdulillah, these things will take care of themselves. Forget it. His laws don't change. His laws simply do not change. And so it is in our interest that if we want to save us from this misery in the world, and it does affect all of us. It affects me, it affects each one of us. But the solution is given in the Quran. The solution is put our head down on this path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim.
One more question. Why do we call it Tulu Islam? Why can't you just...
Tulu Islam is the name given to this because it is the dawn of Islam. It is the rising of Islam. Give it any name. It doesn't make any difference. But this is the
I think it's important to just...
This is the only platform which is... We can call ourselves Jamaat-e-Momineen, but then Mullah will get against you and he's going to come and burn our office in Lahore.
Yeah, because every time you name something,
Tulu Islam, no, there's nothing in the name. Remember, Quran has said in Surah Yusuf that these are some names which you and your ancestors have concocted or fabricated to satisfy your own self. Tulu Islam means just one thing, that it is one institution which is working for the propagation of the system of Deen in the world in order to relieve human beings from their misery in which they find themselves under the man-made system. So this is my understanding. But and the Tulu Islam is not political. It's a very simple organization which is voluntary. So anybody can join it and anybody can leave it anytime. There is no compulsion on anyone.
Okay.
And it is for the sole purpose of spreading the message of the Quran as a system of Deen. And that is the bottom line. And you and me, we know it, that without coming to grips with the system of Deen, we simply cannot strive on this path. Simply cannot strive on this. So name is not an issue. We can call it anything else and it will still not make any difference. We can call it, like Firqa-e-Quran had said that we are Ahlul Quran. Where have they gone? Disappeared. All these people came along and they have disappeared. Somebody said there are 3 namaz. Somebody said there are 5 namaz. Somebody said there is a 10 rosas. Somebody said, all these rituals and others, because people go for these shortcuts, think that somehow it will bring a change, which in their view, through Islam has failed to bring that change. Some of them think that if we don't take Allama Parvez's name, somehow things will start spreading. Zero chance. I've seen it myself in my short life, that people will only change when they are moved by the evil of or the batil of the man-made system, and then they take it on themselves. Never mind, like Hazrat Ibrahim, if there is one moment, one Muslim in the world, then let it be me. Let it be me. And that is the way each one of us have to come to this resolve, very solid, concrete resolve, that I'm, as the Quran says, Hanifan, I'm Hanif, I'm going to stay on this path. If somebody wants to join me, great. I will be with those who are on this path and they are Hanif and they are not going to budge an inch from that. And for that, we have to have a very uncompromising resolve and outlook. Do you get my point?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, thank you.
And think over it. Think over it. For example, if you, let's say you decide tomorrow or 1 year, 1 month from hence and say that this platform is not for me, nothing is happening, then essentially you are saying that the path you are going to follow by leaving this platform of thru Islam will help those human beings in Gaza. And I can assure you, you will spend another 30, 40 years, 50 years of life. You will still be there where you are today. You'll go around in circles. And I've seen all these people who have left our platform and gone away. They are going around in circles. I left them 20 years ago at some point and 10 years ago. They are still sitting there intellectually. They haven't moved. I'm not putting them down. This is the way it is. And if with that mentality they leave this world, they will still be at that point where they are sitting now, and they will be rising up in the hereafter exactly in the same state, discussing that whether Quran, this word of the Quran conveys this meaning or that meaning.
Thank you, Ijaz bhai.
It is a very stark reality, very, very, what you call factual and based on fact and my own empiricism or my own observation. It is not, I'm quoting Allama Parvez. That is why you must have seen I avoid quoting too much of Allama Parvez, because whatever he has said, I have accepted it myself. So this is my own conviction based on, as Quran says, Allah wajahul basira, that based on my own evidence, my own conviction, my own reasoning with myself, that what is the alternative? I go through everything by looking at all alternatives. What is the alternative? And by making that choice, what will I get? Waste of time, total waste of time.
All right, thank you.
And what is going on, for example, in Pakistan? They are picking up one person, another person, not holding elections. Elections is not a solution either, because if your path is wrong, doesn't matter how you select people on that path, because the path is wrong. Path wrong will take us to the deeper part of hell. So never be distracted. Never go to any parties. Don't go to any party leaders who is non-Quranic. And if he or she is Quranic, they will come to thru Islam. I'm telling you now. They can't simply escape. But message is spreading. Gradually, people are reading the Quran, and I know from social media. So we should be encouraged, but it's not a game of numbers. And second is, you should be very convinced that it will happen within your own life, and then put in your best on this path as if it will happen within your own life.
Thank you, Sohaib.
Thank you.
We'll move on. Ji, thank you, Jasab. Ji, Rubina Behan, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much, Ijaz bhai. It was a very good presentation.
I hope it reduced some temperature, made the temperature in Islamabad better.
Definitely. Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit of when Allah says Ibrahim was an Ummah by himself? So can you elaborate a little bit more? What were the characteristics of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Thank you.
And then, oh, thank you. That's a very good query, because that does raise a lot of doubts and sometimes questions in our mind, that how could he be called an ummah? Is it a metaphorical thing? No, it is not metaphorical. It is a real thing. See, throughout the Quran, individual creation as human beings is extremely important in the Book of Allah. And if we look at the Quran from beginning till end, it is addressed to the individual, and then to those individuals who come together and form Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, a jamaat of those who have accepted Iman. But while Quran says that accepting an jamaat in this world is extremely important, or forming a jamaat is extremely important, because the system in this world has to be collective. It has to be Deen. It has to be of all those people who come together, and it calls them Ummah. And that is why Quran says that you are an Ummah which has come out of mankind. And what do? Is you Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa nahwan anil munkar. You do this, that you promote ma'ruf, which is given in the Quran, and ma'ruf means which is known, no confusion. And munkar are all those things, whether those are physical or non-physical, that is psychological, all those wrongs are to be addressed, and you stop them from doing that. And obviously we cannot stop them from doing that unless we recognize them. So individual is extremely important, and individual is the one which come together and then form a jamaat, their hearts unite. So what Quran has said over here is that Ibrahim, if we look at his path, how did he start? He was born in a family which was holding priesthood at that time. And priesthood was extremely powerful. We can say like Haman. And we can see that in for example, in the West over here, Bishop of Canterbury, and he is the member of House of Lord, and how much influence they have. So he was born in that very high priesthood or family, in which he had all the benefits, because had his father died, he would have become the chief rabbi or chief mullah or chief duke, archbishop of Canterbury or mufti or something like that. So he had all the benefits, but he started questioning it. And he said that this is not acceptable. Then he was very much moved by the plight of ordinary human beings. And that is why Quran says he came with a Qalb Salim. And Qalb Salim is, if you remember in Hazrat Lut's story, when those messengers came to him and they said they are going to Lut, Messenger Lut, to tell him that your nation is now reached that point in the law of requital that it has to be destroyed. And he said that he started arguing with them that could you tell Allah that could he delay it a bit, because they will be destroyed. And of course, he knew whole family of Hazrat Lut and of course others as well. And he did not want to be destroyed. And those messengers said that, look, once Allah's law reaches that point where a nation has to be destroyed, then you can't revert it. And then he asked second question that what about Lut? And they said Lut will be saved. And he felt some respite. So that extent he was kind. And then what happened was that then next is he was now looking to, he had reached that point. He had some companions. Quran doesn't go into those details, but he was desperate that since he has understood this message, as each one of us on this platform have understood this message, and we know the benefit of it. And that is why we tell our children as well, our family as well, that please come to this path, because this will give you benefit. And the misery in which you are living, you will stop living that misery, because you will become at peace with yourself. And number of them reject it. Number of them do not come to it. They resist it. And this was his state as well. He was passing on the message. He wanted his children to follow his method, his path. And he also supplicated to Allah that my followers, the progeny of mine, should also benefit from this. And Allah clearly said, only those who follow your path, only those who follow the path the way you are following Allah's path, because Allah's law is that who is looking for guidance, he gets the guidance. And then what he does is that he doesn't have children. Over here we have, in the Hadith literature, there's all types of nonsense attributed to him. Quran puts things in a very true perspective. He said he did not have a son, and he prayed to Allah, and he despite his old age and his wife's old age, he got children, couple of sons at least. And then out of that progeny came out Hazrat Yaqub, Hazrat Yusuf, and then subsequently Bani Israel, and all that story we are familiar with. And over there, then the Quran says, because of his establishing a center in Mecca and Kaaba, and things started spreading. And then the other part of his progeny, which is Hazrat Yaqub, Ishaq, Yaqub, Yusuf, then they spread out in Egypt and that part of the world, which means that he set such an example of his being a complete ummah by looking at whom everyone who was around him and subsequently thought that this is the way one should be if one wants the laws of Allah to help him. And that is something which is, because end of the day, if we see every nation, you will always find somebody at the top who are of exceptional abilities, whether they are exceptionally evil or exceptionally good, that we can figure out ourselves. But under the system of Deen, we will find exceptional people at the top who become exceptional through their own choice. And when those exceptional people disappear, the nations decline. And the best example is in our creation of Pakistan. We can say that Jinnah was an exceptional human being, very rare breed. And same was Allama Parvez and then Iqbal. And these people got together and recognized the need for another piece of land where maybe they can establish the system of Deen. And they achieved that vision in the light of the Quran. And we know that Allama has said about Jinnah that he was extremely Quranic. And he used to, in one of his audios, which I've recently posted, he has gone into detail that I used to have regular meetings with him and we used to discuss various aspects of the Quran. And he said Jinnah was extremely quick on the uptake, that I will say one verse and he will pick it up immediately and say, this is what it means. Why did he acquire that kind of intellectual outlook? Because he was looking for guidance. He got the guidance and then he stuck to it. And he had full, complete iman that Pakistan will become created if we stick to this path. But the people subsequently who came at the helm of affairs, they did not have iman. They looked like Muslims. Their names were like Muslims, but they were not Muslims. Why do I say that? Because of their kartoot, their deeds, their actions, and what they did with the country. And the first thing what they did was they got rid of Parvez. Allama Parvez himself has said that he was in continuous touch with them. But they refused to include him in any of the reformative program which he suggested. So by looking at the world in which we are, we can see that what kind of personality Ibrahim had acquired at that point in time. So all those equalities of a moment, which Quran says this is how moment should be, who should take the responsibilities of Allah on his own shoulders and say, even if there is one man, I am the one who will do it. Whether somebody joins me or not, doesn't matter. And imagine that all of these people who are an ummah in themselves, if they come together, and let's say, over here, 14 of us, now 14 ummahs, if come together, how big change they can bring into the world with the help of Allah. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
So we are, see, man, we go over it repeatedly. I know I am restricted, I am limited, and I am weak by the proportion to which my resolve is weak. If I start saying today that it cannot be done, like that is why I told Suhaib that you must be convinced that it will happen within my lifespan and then work for it, then see things will start falling in place. And I have said it many times over here that I am working as if it will happen in my life. And I'm 74, I don't have much time left. But why not think like that? Because when I look at my own self, I say, no, it will not happen in my life. But when I look at Allah's infinite scale, I say, no, it can happen in my lifetime. What is wrong with it? What is wrong with me? So that is the way we have to develop this thought within us. That is why I always say that this platform which we have created is not about learning the Quran per se. Of course, we are here to learn the Quran, but it is more to come together so that we interact with each other and understand each other. That, for example, now you will go away and say, this is the way ERasool thinks. I will say that this is the way the other 13 members of this group think. And they don't get bored. Because why do we get bored? We get bored when we think that there is nothing for me in this issue. If I think today that these results will not appear within my lifetime, then whatever we have said over here, it is meaningless. We have just gone through some slides, some points. Okay, Hazrat Ibrahim was an ummah in himself, so what? I can't be an ummah like him. I can't be bothered to become an ummah like him. Then essentially we are telling Allah that your book can create an ummah in him, but somehow it cannot create an ummah in Iftikhar Sahab or Suhaib or ERasool or Malik Bhai or Fawzia Malik or Saima Bhan or Salim Sahab or Rubina Bhan. Or what I mean is, I'm just taking the name just to illustrate it in a more prominent manner. Then obviously we will never become an ummah. And if individually we can't become an ummah, then all of us being together, how can it become an ummah? It cannot. It simply cannot. And this ummah became created in Rasulullah's time. And should I say that Jinnah and Allama Parvez and Iqbal, they created an ummah, 3 of them, and they created that country. And if these guys had listened to Allama Parvez, Pakistan would have been a superpower today of the system of Deen.
So for an individual, I think this is what we should do at the moment, that we should become an ummah within ourselves.
Yes.
And then when we come together and when we can make the difference.
We are together. What I mean is, see, I don't know how all of you look at it. 3.5 years ago, we were all dispersed, even on thru Islam platform. Then we created this platform and we said, let us come together and let's go through the Allah's book. Then we had people came in and people left. And gradually we have reached a stage where we have a fairly stable number of same members coming here and discussing with each other. And I don't know how many of you look forward to it. I know Brother Iftikhar has told me many times that he's looking forward to it. I have taken it on myself that we should interpret the Quran in the context of Deen. And Allama Parvez has made our path extremely, extremely easy for us. We avoid mutual praises, admiration, other things, because aim is to follow this path together, unite our hearts, and then hope that at some point success will come on our path. We don't know. But like Quran has said, La nudiyu ajr al muhsinin, that those who are muhsinin, their deeds never go wasted. And let us check our deeds. You know, all of us can, for example, you are doing that great work in Islamabad. Will that go wasted? It can't. It simply can't. So similarly, we all are in our own way keeping the light of Wahi in front of us. We are doing our best to bring out our potentials. And I hope so, because that is something which we must. From week to week, we should see that where we were this Sunday and what we are next Sunday. Have we lived up to the values of the Quran within the constraints of the man-made system? And keeping in mind all the time that if I don't do it, then I can't leave it for others to do it. Because Allah is watching me, Allah is with me, and He wants me to do it. So to the best of our ability, we keep doing it. And that is how we motivate ourselves. That is the way I motivate myself. Sometimes I also feel like that we may not get these results. Then the counter thought comes from the Quran is, what is wrong with you? You just do it. Leave the results to Allah's laws. Leave it to Him. So that is the way we have to proceed. And we have to be extremely, extremely careful that in this, egoism must not come. It is not about me and you as an individual. It is about all those people who are getting killed in the world for no fault of theirs. if we don't stand up today, I can assure you another 1500 years, and there will be another ERasool and another Iftikhar and another Sohaib, another Rabina Ban and other Asif Jalil Sahab, and all these will be sitting again and discussing again the same. And then they will dig out some of our videos and say, oh, right, these people also came. And then they gave up and died, and that was the end of it. So this is the way it is. So if we are discussing Hazrat Ibrahim today as an Ummah in himself, because he was an Ummah in himself, and if we become an Ummah, each one of us in ourselves, which is very easy, it's not a difficult path. He used to get up in the morning, make some breakfast, make some lunch, go and do some tilling in the fields. He must have had some bullocks and some plow or something, and get his crops. And his children also grew up, took about 20, 25 years before that he did something. It was a very slow process, evolutionary process. And people came to him, people left him, he joined up with that. He confronted the local rulers, he confronted the local priesthood, and he argued with them. Some joined him, some left him, some must have worked against him. So this was his typical life. And it was not anything different from our life. We might be using smartphones, and over there he was just talking to each other, conversing at that level. But end of the day, exactly the same human being who gets up in the morning, goes through the chores of life, and then goes to sleep. And then all we are asking from each other is that whenever we have this lecture, please come over and share it. Not to enhance your knowledge, of course, that is important, but more than that is to come together, question each other, understand each other, ask questions, even if you just make it up that I have to participate, and then disperse with a very high note and a positive way that I have achieved something, I have spared time. And then also we should look at it that during this time of 3 to 5, or in Pakistan 8 to 10, what exactly I would have done had I not attended this lecture. If there was something important, that's a different issue. And then not to give up for someone who is non-Quranic. And that is our first test. And that was the test which Ibrahim met. He told everyone, look, this is my important work. If you want to, in this work, I'm not going to budge an inch. I'm not going to get distracted. I will do it. And this is on my terms and conditions, which are the terms and conditions of my Allah. And that is the way the system progresses. If we compromise on everything, and despite having a platform, despite knowing about it, despite attending it few times here and there, if we do not spare time to this, then I'm afraid Ibrahim, being Ummah, is really out of our reach. Then we are not fair to ourselves, and we are not fair to Allah as well. And Allah can wait. He's Hayyul Qayyum. He's not in a hurry. The hurry is on you and my part. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ajaz Bhai.
And second is, as I said earlier, that where are we going to do? We can't go out of this earth, and we are going to die. Death is the fact of life. So even it's not about individual salvation. I hate using the word salvation, individual salvation, because individual salvation is a very selfish thing. Quran is asking us to be part of it as a system. Because once we are collectively together, then our hereafter is assured.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is why
Thank you,
Quran says,
Ijaz Bhai.
"Bil akhiratihum yuqinun." So for this meeting, whenever we announce this meeting, my request to every member is give up birthdays, give up relations who are non-Quranic, give up every commitment of theirs. Don't attend any marriage. Come here and attend it, and then you will see the results of it in the hereafter, what I have said today. And I have tested it. I have done it. I do it. It's not something which I'm expecting other brothers and sisters to do it. I'm just an ordinary human being like all of you, and I'm just one in this Jamaat of ours, should I say. But if I can do it, why others can't? And I see it, even with my own family. They are not ready to sacrifice the pleasure of others whom they are quite willing to go and waste time. And then when they come back and I say, what did you achieve? And they say, Dad, we didn't achieve anything. We just wasted time. And I look at them and smile. That's fine. What can I do? It's their free will.
I think it's the priority and also the sacrifice. These two qualities must be in us.
Thank you, Rubina and Bahan.